Okay, so now that we have reviewed some information about the art of mosaics, you are going to create your own mosaic using food packaging. Okay, so I'm sure we're all, we're stuck at home, right? So we've been eating at home maybe more often than we normally do. We're not going out for breakfast, we're not going out for lunch as often as we normally do. So we should have a bunch of boxes. So this is, thin cardboard from a cereal box. And if we look at them, they come in a wide variety of colors. There's different textures if there's, photographs versus illustrations. So lots of different colors, even different values within the same color area. So what I want you to do is collect a bunch of food packaging materials in a variety of colors, or if you have a plan in mind, a design in mind, focus on just those colors. Okay, and then what you're going to do is break these boxes down and cut your own little mosaic tiles. So as we discussed, mosaic is usually done in tile or glass, but here I have cut them all into little squares or rectangles, and you could cut them if you need something that's long and skinny. Sometimes mosaic artists will cut the glass or the tile specifically for a certain area. You can do that. So you can cut them really small, keep them all very, like you could even measure and keep them all very uniform if you wanted to. That's totally up to you. Then as far as the design goes, you could start with a grid where I'll put a template online, or you could start with a pre-drawn grid and then you would just kind of figure out, almost like a pixel drawing, which part is going to be which color. Or you could go a little bit more organically and start with a design. I just lightly sketched this little fish here. I hope you guys can see it. Just color pencil. I actually just used the back of the ice cream sandwich box because it's nice and sturdy, so to hold up to the glue. I would recommend you use a piece of cardboard or something sturdier than just, computer paper, because the glue might start to make it warp. And then all you need is a little bit of glue. So Elmer's glue, glue sticks, whatever you have around the house. So you would just need a pair of scissors, to cut your squares. And then this is some random glue I have left over from one of my kids' craft kits. Okay, and then you would start to lay out your tiles based on, what color you want where in your design. And then you may decide, like, what? The squares I cut, like my design is kind of small. The squares I cut might be too big. So maybe I want to cut some of them smaller to accommodate smaller areas. So think about patterns, think about value. Where do you need things to be darker, lighter, and make it pretty interesting. So I shared with you a bunch of examples of mosaic art. Like this one's a little bit thicker, so maybe I'll put the little thinner one on the end. Okay, and if you notice, there is a little bit of space between my squares. Okay, so when I start to glue this down, I do want to leave space. All right, so I'm going to start to play around with my colors and where I want things, and then we'll talk about gluing. Okay, now that I have a basic idea of kind of the colors I want, I'm going to start to glue down in certain areas. So I would do it section by section. I'm going to start with the fish itself here. And, as you go, you might decide you want to cut some pieces smaller to get a little bit more details, and that's totally fine. So you can be as realistic, as realistic as you want, as abstract as you want, as simplified as, you can look to all kinds of different art forms as inspiration. So, I mean, this is pretty small for me. I feel like it's really hard to work this small, but, whatever works for you. So you can either put a little dot, like a little tiny drop of glue right on the cardboard, or if you have a bunch to put down, you could kind of brush on some glue across the whole background part of it and then just glue them on. If any of you guys have ever watched a home improvement show, or your parents have remodeled a kitchen or a bathroom and you've seen people install tile, you know, they put the tile adhesive down first and then stick the tiles down and then they grout them. So we're not obviously going to grout, but I want you guys to pay attention. This is going to dry clear, or I hope it'll dry clear. I think it will, the glue. But notice right here, I'm leaving a little gap. I'm letting the little bit of that brown on the cardboard show through to give it that feeling of a true mosaic, okay? So whatever process you find easier, either a tiny drop on the tile, or you can put the glue directly on the background. And then as you're going, you know, like if you've ever watched anyone build a brick wall, or a rock wall, you know, sometimes you need to adjust and modify the stones that you're putting into place. So you might find yourself needing to do that here as well. Like maybe you want to cut some different angles. So I stuck to sort of traditional mosaic shapes here, squares, rectangles, but you could cut different shapes. The only thing is, this is not collage, okay? So we're not going to let our pieces overlap. So if we were doing collage, we could use, like, you know, ripped up magazine pages and let the actual pieces overlap, but we don't want to do that. We want to keep the space as in a traditional mosaic, okay? So I'm going to continue gluing. I'm just taking my time. I'm going one piece at a time. And again, leaving that space. And as you go around, you might decide, like I said, I need to trim this guy a little bit, to change the shape a little bit of some of your pieces so they do fit better, like a real puzzle piece. But the spacing between the mosaic tiles does not have to be even, but it should be there, and it should be pretty small. Also, another thing to consider is a border. So if you look at some of the traditional mosaics from, like, let's say ancient Greece and stuff like that, you would see a really cool border. So you could, if you wanted to, use a ruler, measure out, like, these are all a little funky the way I cut them, but you could measure out perfect little squares and make a cute pattern to create a border around your whole piece, and then, you know, fill in the background space. So I'm going to continue gluing and we'll see what this turns out. So hopefully you can understand the process. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to finish because this little tiny vial of glue is kind of empty at this point. But you can see I had started off with, you know, square type shapes, but then because of the size of my design and the complexity of some of the areas, like with the fins and all, I decided to start cutting skinnier shapes so that I could get the curves the way I wanted them. And this is up to you how you want this to look. It can look like a pixel image with a perfect grid with the little squares, or you can be more organic like this. You could change the shapes, the sizes of the shapes, like maybe your background would be really big, simple shapes. Your object or image would be a little bit more complex. So hopefully that helps explain it. I did also have a pencil handy to help me sort of push over the pieces if I couldn't get my fingers in there. So it's up to you how you want this to look. But I would encourage you to look at other mosaics from history for inspiration And over the next couple days, start collecting boxes that have some interesting colors, even if they have photographs of real food on them. You know, you'll have some interesting textures. Like right here I used the orange from the Apple Jacks box. So it gives some more variation rather than something that's just a flat solid color. But the solid colors work really well too. So start collecting boxes, start cutting them up. I would probably take the side of a cereal box like this, cut it down, and use that as the base of your mosaic. Just use the inside part, the cardboard side, okay? And that will hold up to the glue better than paper will, okay? It'll be a little bit sturdier of an image, okay? So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you find it relaxing, and hope to see some really cool creative ideas that you guys come up with. Thanks for watching.